Hello. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own 3D objects inside of a space in CoSpaces. So I picked the house. Typically, I don't recommend to people who are building for the first time to build inside of the house because your space is limited and it can be a little challenging. But I'm going to build a table today, which makes sense to put in the house. So I'm going to go to the library, go to building blocks, and we're going to start with a rectangle here, a square here. So I'm going to change the size. So we're going to make table legs, and let's make them even, and I'll say that's a pretty good height. So now I've got my table leg. I'm going to actually need 4 of them. So I'm going to duplicate it so they're all the same size. I'm going to place them approximately where I think they need to go, but keep in mind that I may move them once I take a better look at some of this. And there, now I've got 4. Now I can always zoom in on these things and get a better look at where they are in relationship to one another. So you can see they're not perfectly lined up right now, but we'll work on that as we lay the top over top. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a glass top table. So I'm going to take this rectangle, I'm going to duplicate it, I'm going to flip it on its side, raise it up, and I'm probably gonna make it a little thinner than what it is now because that's too thick for my table. So I'm gonna go back to here, drop it down. We'll keep it at 0.2, and we're gonna have to make it longer, right? To make it all the way to this side. So let's make sure it goes all the way from one to the other. Looks like I've made it about. And it can always go over. There's never a problem with it going over. It's if it's not long enough. And again, I'm going to duplicate this object so that I can keep it the same length uniformly across. Same height, same length. See, I'm a little bit above where I need to be. So I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to go check out this one. It's going to be the same, right? Either drop it down. I'm definitely going to adjust some of these pieces to really line up. I'm going to zoom in on them with that hold V button to zoom in on those objects you are working with. I want them to kind of line up really nicely at the end here as best I can. You can see this one's sticking out a little more than I would like. And same thing over here. All right, so now I've got those pieces. I'm going to need to put 2 around the sides here. So I can always go back and get a new block. I tend to do the duplicate when I'm using the same type of block, and I'll just change the shape and size and positioning of that block. I just find it to be a little quicker. That's up to whoever, that's up to your personal preference in making the object. So in this case, this is a little bigger than I need it to be. It's also not perfectly level. If you're uncomfortable with the lining up, the snap tool helps. For most people, that's helpful. In this case, I'm okay with it overlapping a little bit because it really doesn't matter. It's going into the other blocks, the other pieces of wood. But it's a little too tall, so I need to shrink it down a little. It looks like I can't, so I'm going to actually lower it a little bit on the elevation. Sometimes you'll find that the rotation tool on the options is not as precise as the drag tool. There we go. So now I have my space in the middle for my glass. So 2 things you'll see. One, this glass sheet. We're going to have to resize that big time because it's way too big. So I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to have to rotate it a couple ways. And I have to be able to lay it over top of the table. Again, I'm taking full advantage of that zooming tool to really get a better view of where I am with this glass piece on the table. So look at that. It is just a little bit short. I'm going to have to make it a tiny bit bigger. And overlap is not a big deal because it's going to end up into the wooden piece. And the last thing I'm going to do, one, I have to make sure it's even. So I check multiple angles to make sure things are even, make sure things are where I think they are in relationship to where they look like they are. All those things are important in creating your piece. You could, if you wanted to, put another regular piece underneath this. But now I have my glass table, and I'm going to group it together. So I'm going to right-click and drag over the whole thing. I have all those options there. I'm going to double-click, and then I'm just going to group them. That way I can move them around together. My glass table can go wherever I want.